Jake Bogus and Nick Barr.
Go ahead, caller. You're on with Dingo and the Baby.
Back to the Drive.
This is the Drive.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Jake Bogus and Nick Barr.
Throwback Thursday, Bryan Munson, Big Red Report, and FoxSports.com. Dr. Munson, good to talk to you as always, sir. We're a little late getting to you. How's your afternoon going?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. How you guys doing?
We're doing well.
Great.
We're doing well. Terrell Newby, that name ring a bell?
Vaguely.
What? Tell us about him, Bryan.
5'10", 180, 185 pound running back out of West Hills Chaminade High School out there in California. Scored 8 touchdowns in a single game. It was like Tecmo Bowl, watching his video, scoring those touchdowns. Bo Jackson, unfair just to have a guy like that on your football team. Has tremendous vision, tremendous quickness, has patience has patience though to find the hole. One of those, single cut guys that doesn't dance around too much and has that fifth gear that is just fun to watch. I don't know who I really go out there on a limb and say I compare him a lot to. He does just about a little bit of everything, too. He has the ability not just to be a difference maker in the run game. You can get him involved in the pass game as well. And I personally believe that this is a guy that next season will step in from this 2013 class, and he will have an impact on that football field next year for Nebraska.
We'll get back to that in a little bit, but just how big from taking a step back from a broader perspective is the fact that not just Newby the player, the fact that they got the number one running back in California, went into UCLA's backyard and plucked a guy. Just in the grand scheme of things, those things are big for a program.
Well, I think it says a lot about Nebraska's effort, and I think that the one thing with talking to Newby, and I don't know how else to say this is that the Nebraska staff targeted him early, and they stayed on him the entire time like it would have been the first time they found him. And I think Ron Brown, I think Rich Fisher, I think Tim Beck, I think all the offensive staff and all the Nebraska coaches played a role in this. And I think the one thing that was kind of funny, and Newby told me before Christmas time was, Nebraska fans thought he was just a goner when UCLA offered, and he said, man, that offer didn't mean to me as much as what people thought it did. He goes, Nebraska has been there right at the top the whole entire time, and I think that another one of those kids you could chalk up to being as good of a person as he is a football player.
Bryan Munson, our guest, Big Red Report. He's on Twitter as well, at Big Red Bryan. I think Nick was going to ask you about this as well. You said he's going to make an impact in 2013. Why do you think that?
I just look at the skill set, and I think he's going to push a lot of people immediately. I think ideally the quickness aspect, the ability to go ahead and be that home run hitter. I think the speed is something that you can't leave on the sideline. I think also there's just something about you have to get a guy like that on the football field when he can go ahead and go out there and make plays. And I think Nebraska, and I think that people saw this too. I think that was a team come Big Ten championship game time this year that there wasn't a lot left in the tank. They had a very difficult schedule. They played against some very physical teams, some teams that also came into the game against Nebraska and gave Nebraska, their best shot and hit him in the mouth over and over and over again. And I think it took a lot out of Nebraska. I think Nebraska's going to need a lot of legs. And I think that Newby's one of those guys, though, that can put the game upside down very quickly.
Well, my rebuttal to that is, if there's one thing that Nebraska's shown over the last couple of seasons is that third running back doesn't get a lot of carries. So you're saying that he's going to make an impact. That would lead me to believe that you think he's going to jump Braylon Hurd and Amani Cross. The way I will play devil's advocate is, if you put Braylon Hurd on Terrell Newby's high school team this year, don't you think he produces the same jaw-dropping sort of highlights and runs?
Potentially. I don't know necessarily, though, if that's I think you're still talking about a different type of guy. And I don't get me wrong. I love Hurd's feet. I think Hurd has got some very quick feet. However, I think the things that have slowed him down in Lincoln have nothing to do with the offense, have nothing to do, really maybe with injury somewhat. However, I do think that one of the biggest setbacks so far with Hurd has been the changing of positions last spring. And I think if you would have left him at one position or the other, he might have had a bigger impact so far. But I think Newby is a guy that is going to be there when it comes to that either code number 2 or outright number 2 spot on the depth chart. I'm just going out there on the limb, guys. That's all I'm saying.
No, that's fine. No,
you're certainly not alone in that in that regard. It just, I don't know. I'm always the type of guy that I'm hard pressed to believe that Newby right now is just light years better than Braylon Hurd.
I just have. I think that he is such a compliment, such a tempo guy, and I think that he is gonna. I think he just has the ability of really swinging a lot of things, especially when you start talking about Tim Beck and the style of offense he wants to run and putting that type of speed on the football field. I just think that there's another level that you take it to when you add Newby into the mix.
So he'd be the fast. He's without question. Would he be the home run threat if he would step on the field next year? Is he? I believe
that would be accurate.
Wow, Bryan Munson. He's on Twitter as well at Big Red Bryan. You can check out his stuff online at BigRedReport.com. I think we've kind of discussed this a little bit, Bryan, but Nebraska, they do get 2 defensive linemen within the last week and a half, but it's certainly not all they wanted at the position. I hate to play the blame game, but who's to blame here? I mean, why with Nebraska with a weak defensive line this year, they lack depth, why couldn't they get some maybe higher-rated guys from, according to Scout?
So are we going beyond just the junior college guys they missed in the early signing period, or just... Sure,
it doesn't matter. Whatever's on your mind. Like, why did Nebraska miss out on so many good defensive linemen?
Well, now, look, in fairness, Malik Collins just got a big bump in the rankings on Scout.com. So if you go back over there, Malik Collins has jumped from a 3-star. I think he was number 53, which isn't too shabby. I mean, I think the defensive tackle position is typically, or is annually, one of the thinnest positions. You have the cream of the crop, and then there's a bunch of guys that are going to be maybe a little better than a coin flip if they're going to end up doing something. And then there's guys that you have to kind of be careful in your evaluation to make sure that you're looking for the right type of thing. But Malik went from the number 53 defensive tackle to number 25 at a 4-star. I think that when it comes, and I think Maurice would get a nice bump too, because I watched Maurice's film and Collins' film, and I think if you put them side by side sometimes and mix the film together, you wouldn't have known who you were looking at, except by the uniform. They're both those guys that they're quick, they're kind of square body, and I think that when you start looking at defensive tackles, the problem that you have there is that sometimes when you don't grab those square body guys, you get guys that are too slight, 255, 260, or you get the guys that are a little bit too heavy right now, 300, 305. But they don't have that height where you start talking about 6'2" to 6'3", maybe 6'4" guys, and you start to then lose what you're kind of looking for, and that is a guy that you want to mold, guy you want to work with. And I think some of the tools, like particularly with Malik Collins, that I really like is the fact that he's a wrestler, and I think that what you get when you deal with wrestling, of course, is that leverage. I think also wrestlers traditionally that those workout practices are terribly difficult to go through. But I think also you get some ideas about how to balance your weight and do your nutrition. I think it also works with your hands. But Kevin Maurice, to me, is an outstanding athlete. And I think that these are two guys that when you start looking at it, you go, okay, now does Nebraska go ahead and take a step back when they miss out on the early signings, with Petco and all these other guys going other places, none of them choose Nebraska in December? Do they go out there and find a guy that can go ahead as a junior college guy, come in and have a 3-for-2 or 2-for-2 type eligibility, or do they go ahead and find the best thing that they can get at the high school level? And I think they got two very good defensive tackles, of guys that they can work with. I think they also look a lot like Aaron Curry last year.
Hey, Bryan, explain to us. I don't know if you know more than what what you read on the internet or whatever the case may be, with what happened with Brandon Vandenberg, the junior college tight end who tweeted earlier this week that the Nebraska coaching staff called him and said, "Hey, we were so busy, we forgot to tell you that we're not taking we're not taking another tight end, and he was scheduled to go on an official visit. Was he already offered a scholarship? How long ago did the scheduled visit happen? Just talk about that.
So Vandenberg picked up an offer. I want to say it was in the earlier part of December, about the time that I think Nebraska was getting back out there on the road after the Big Ten championship game, and I think that finally there was some idea there that Sandlin could go south, so they make another offer to a junior college tight end. What I find is a very convenient fact right now is that Nebraska is also going to host another tight end, and that's Stephen Carter from Louisiana. Now, he is not a junior college guy, but what this kind of leads me to believe, guys, in situations I've seen before in the past, and I'm definitely not offering this up as an excuse, because I did find the Vandenberg thing to be, let's just say, a little bit shocking. He looks like a player. I've never seen him play. I've never seen his film. But Stephen Carter is coming on strong. Guy with a gray shirt LSU offer. He's got a bunch of other offers. Picked up a Nebraska offer. Sent up an official visit quickly. I'm wondering there if Nebraska made the comparison again, just like they did at defensive tackle. Do we go ahead and grab a junior college guy just because we think he's more ready, or do we grab a guy that in the long run we feel is a better fit for what we're trying to do at Nebraska? And I go ahead and side with the latter a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Tim Beck deserved a raise of about 100%?
I believe that he is worth the money, yes. I think that when you look at that offense and what he was able to produce, I think what he's going to be able to produce next year, because the preseason rankings already came out, the Nebraska's rated number 10. Is that what I heard? So I think you look at that, and much of that's going to be is positive based on what Nebraska can put on the football field from an offensive standpoint. Because I think there's a lot of question marks about that defense, but they can go young, they can go athletic, they can run on the job, they can allow 20 points because they're going to score 35 every game. I mean, that's an offense to me that's going to go out there and it's going to be a very fun thing to watch next season. I think that Tim Beck had a great season. I think there were definitely some times when you could look at some of the play calls that you kind of shake your head and ask why they got away from things so quickly, why they abandoned things. But I think that he's growing as an offensive coordinator, and I think when you see that he has the right pieces to work with, he could put a pretty good, or I would say a really good product out there in the football field for Nebraska.
Hey, how does Newby compare to Adam Taylor? How are they different?
They are very different. Taylor is about as fun to watch as Newby's film is, but for exact opposite reasons. Newby is a guy that's like a runaway train, and when you try to find him, you try to catch up with him, you have a hard time catching the angle on him because you can see he's just so fast, and he's tough to get a square hit on. But with Taylor, he's kind of a one-cut train that wants to run you over. He is a physical guy, and he is a violent running back. They are very good complements for one another. Taylor is useful out of the backfield as well when it comes to being a receiver. That's not going to be his forte. His deal is going to be between C gap to C gap, running between the tackles and getting downfield, getting to that second level, making a cut, and then hitting a gear. And he is deceptively fast. He's not Newby like watching him just pull away from people, but when watching Taylor on his long runs, and he has a lot of long runs for being as physical of a guy as you would think that you're not talking about Imani Cross again. You're not. You're talking about a guy that's a cross between, you're talking about a guy that's a little bit more quick, has better speed, more of a home run hitter. Taylor has long runs, had a lot of long runs in the state championship game down here in Dallas a few weeks ago. Looked very, very good. Very good compliment for the two guys together in that offensive backfield in this class.
Is Newby the best running back on film you've seen in recent memory for Nebraska recruits?
That's going to be a big statement because there was a guy about 4 years ago down here from Plano, Texas, that I had a big kick out of watching as a high school player, Rex Burkhead. And Burkhead got the nickname Superman. It wasn't self-given. he came down here and made some people look pretty foolish, particularly when they got a chance. Plano got a chance. They were outmanned. They were outgunned. They had a lot less talent than a Dallas Skyline team did, and a lot less athletes. I would go as far to say as well. But Burkhead really played well that night and was running away from a team that had a lot of team speed. Burkhead to me was probably one of the best I've seen in recent history.
He's Bryan Munson. He's on Twitter as well, at Big Red Bryan. Check out his stuff, BigRedReport.com. We appreciate the honesty, the candor, sir. It's always good to catch up with you, and have a lovely rest of the week, Bryan.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure. I'll see you.
You bet.
Thanks, Bryan.